Remember how I said inspiration can be anything? Well, sometimes it does start simple. And even though I love the deep, soulful, and abstract thinking, and maybe a good mystery of the universe, a quote or something to grab onto, sometimes it's just fun to be playful and light. So I have just some black ink. It's called Black Cat ink. I think that's from dickblick.com. It's just India ink, waterproof. You can get this probably any kind of brand. And then this inspirational artist, Joan Miro. This book is pretty awesome. It's his graphic work. It's hard to find a copy. Maybe you could find a copy on eBay if it doesn't have the dust jacket on, which my dust jacket, it came with a ripped one. But the cover is pretty cool itself, right? That's already inspiring. And we're gonna go through this book and kind of use it as a jumping off point. It's not really like a direct influence, but when we talk about inspiration, it's really about finding what's exciting and what lights you up, and not necessarily ripping it off, but pulling an element here and pulling an element there, and then pulling an element there and there and there and there. And then that's how you kind of hone your own artistic voice in the long term. And of course, that can always change depending on what your goal is. I'm Natalie D'Adamio. I'm a mixed media abstract artist, intuitive guide and channel, soulful creator, lover of color, but today we're using black. I'm sure I'll probably throw some color in there though. How could I not? I do have a video though that is all about going back to the basics. You can watch that right there. Just black. And sometimes it's good to just pare it down. And because it can get a little crazy and sometimes even confusing. But, in the end, you have to do what you have to do. What you want to do. You should do what you feel called to do as an artist and as a creative and as a creator, as a person living in this world. Look I just got this weird alien thing. I feel better now that I have 3. Oh my god. I only was wearing 2 things for a while, and I used to have this star that was like a choker. And then it broke. My star broke, but now I have the alien that's pretty much like having a star. Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you because I have to have the 3s. Something weird about me. But let's just dive into this Joan Miro book, and we'll draw from some inspirations. And we'll think about it a little bit, and we'll just play and experiment and have fun. We have this Joan Miro book. The cover was ripped when I purchased it on eBay. It did make it a little cheaper. This is his graphic works. It definitely is still an expensive book because it's out of print. It's just how it happens. I really love the fact that the cover has this little guy on there. That's interesting and inspiring. Just gonna show you a few things. I also use a lot of primary colors. But I've looked at this book a bunch of times. Aren't these just great? His faces and like I was saying, there is stars and symbols and little weird shapes and stuff. So some of these I've already tagged from the past. And, you know, I do really love black when it's like in a graphic way. Like, I really do like it in graphic design and even tattooing. I enjoy like a black and gray or a black and white like graphic image. So I'm not opposed to the black. I just don't tend to gravitate towards it all the time. But I do love it in ink, and that's what it's exciting. There are some color plates in here. But we could just like look at some of these and get some inspiration. This one's really cool. To me, it's like so primitive and cave-like and childlike too. So I like how it has like an ancient yet like childlike quality to it. It's whimsical. It's odd. it's good. And we'll just like look at the stuff and kind of see what's exciting. Look at this one. And there are some color ones, like he used a lot of primary colors and green. And I'm probably just gonna use whatever I want to use, because it's just like not to like necessarily copy, but maybe to draw influence. Could kind of just look at the different shapes and lines, and there's a thinness and a thickness and a different variation going around. And they're just like fun. I do like a lot of just fun and nonsensical art or where it just kind of delights the senses and it doesn't have to really say much. But it does have that, it conveys that like strange and odd and childlike wonder, an imaginative world. It's like an oddity and an eccentricness, because it's fun to kind of just make little like beings up that don't exist but now they do. I think that's so cool about illustration and like children's books and stuff. But then you could see how it's very like graphic too, so this one's really nice. I like that a lot. So you kind of have an idea of what I'm going for in this little fun exercise, and I'm gonna just riff off of this book and use the ink to kind of explore a little bit more and see what happens in the process. So I'm just gonna like play with the ink, see what happens. I have these cheap brushes from the $1.25 store. So maybe I'm not like taking it directly, but I am taking it indirectly. The inspiration. Sometimes I'll use like little containers depending on what I want. Maybe to have more control. So I'm just gonna use a toothbrush. I really like a toothbrush because it like gives a good what I'm trying to say, like this is a pencil but this is a toothbrush, but this is more of like a brush, but it still has the utilitarian feel and weight of this pencil. The graphite, so I really enjoy that. So see, that's a subtlety and a nuance, right, that I just said. But I'm looking for that stuff all the time because I'm just feeling into it. And you might have a different relationship to how you view your materials, which you should, because you should develop your own personal language with how it feels for you. You know, if you're interested in that, you know, none of these things are written in stone. You can always try this out one day and decide you don't like it the next. That's why it's called change. So here I'm gonna water down the ink a little and maybe get a smaller brush. So it kind of makes it more gray when you add the water. I'm using the paper as the white space. Yeah, I was thinking about how does it move around the page, what's interesting. Maybe I want a little splatter. Maybe I will spray this. That's gonna be dangerous. And then maybe I'll take the end of the brush and drag it through. And remember, it's not like looking for a complete copy of it. It's kind of like riffing off of it. It was inspiring. Maybe I think I'll add a little pen. There isn't really a right or wrong in this kind of experimentation. That's what's fun. It's kind of just looking at something that's exciting to you and you know, flowing with it, maybe getting some kind of ideas. Maybe sometimes you can't even tell what the process is, which that's always interesting when you, for me, when you look at something and you don't really know what's going on. And then it's just about having another experiment. So maybe I'll start with that. Whoa! So just playing off of the way those dots kind of splattered on there. I am thinking thick and thin. Maybe I'll do a spiral here. So it doesn't have to make sense. It could just be silly and fun. Just see what wants to come out. In this case, I might add a little color in here. Oops. His face wasn't dry there. I'm kind of just following the lines around and you know, picking and choosing the spaces. There isn't a wrong way to use your imagination, experiment, have fun. Make some faces if you want. So I feel like even if you're not interested in this kind of more primitive, naive art, it could still teach you something if you decide to try it out. Because when we talk about playfulness and imagination and having fun, maybe like accessing more inside of us, I feel like an exercise like this can be helpful because you're really kind of required to open a little bit more to not having as much judgment. A lot of times the fear is coming from the judgment. You feel like you're trying to make some perfect thing, but this is clearly more of like child's play in a way. You could call it elevated child's play though, because yeah, I have thought about it, but I'm more interested in having the fun than I am thinking, and I'm not really worried what. I just jumped off from the inspiration of those books and kind of just going with it. Like, where does it feel good to put the blue? Maybe here. And because also not only that it was a feeling, but I had some there and I had some at the bottom. So I want to direct my eye back into the blue over here. So I might be thinking about that, right? Or I want to splatter some, or just go like that. Just like a subtle little thing sometimes can make all the difference. You just never know. You wanna pay attention to that stuff, and you pay attention to that over time. The more you look at art, the more you make art, the more you think about it, the more you don't think about it too. It's kind of all working together, and sometimes we want more of one thing and less of another. So I'm gonna grab this like yellow pastel. It's a little bit brighter yellow than this yellow on here. That's fun. Ooh. So ridiculous. So Joan Miro has been quoted to say, "The painting rises from the brushstroke, the poem rises from the words, the meaning comes later." So what does that say about inspiration and kind of creativity? It means that we're feeling into the imagination and the excitement and the energy of something, and then like determining what it is after the fact. So in that regard, we're really having like a playful nature, a childlike nature, exploring wonder and like the dream states, and moving into the experimentation of the expression, which is important for kind of becoming a conduit for the idea, and working with intuition and automatism. So there's 6 key points we can really take away from Joan Miro's graphic work and looking at some of this work and feeling into it, right? Number 1 is embracing spontaneity and playfulness. So that's all about experimentation. So how do we open more to that childlike wonder? We can get curious, and we can pretend maybe we never did this before, or what if we make this mark that way, or what if we just splash the ink all over and see what happens, and then use that as a jumping off point. We can also, number 2, break free from tradition. So by exploring in a playful manner and opening up the curiosity, it brings in more imagination. But maybe it's already been done before, but maybe it hasn't been done in your way, or maybe you like throw the paint a certain way, or you move your hand a certain way and it does something, and you pay attention to that moment, and that like becomes your moment, especially if you're working daily in your practice and you do it over and over and over. That eventually becomes yours in a way, even if it was, you know, just an X or something. It becomes your X in the way you relate to it. So, but you're breaking away from tradition where it's not so rudimentary, right? We're thinking about intuition and automatism and dialing in and opening up those senses, which is exciting and important for like exploring like that playfulness and that fun, free nature. And number 3, using symbolism to express abstraction. There's like little stars and moons and funny faces, and sometimes there's like house-like structures, and you know, using these symbology in a playful manner to kind of bring in that dream-like quality to the work and that magic and mysticism, and you know, embracing that wonder, and then like having that be an output into the work that you're doing, right? And finding your symbols, right? Like this weird alien symbol. What is that? I really love the markings on that, right? A key point number 4 is we can find inspiration in the ordinary, right? It doesn't have to be such a deep idea, although I do love those. But, you know, we could just find inspiration in this item, or, you know, the color blue, the way a tree is. There's many like lines and shapes and forms that come off of that. So it's about paying attention to the world around us, right? And looking and staying curious. That's a big word that many people will use. Curiosity, play, looking. There's a lot of looking in art, right? We're looking at inspiration, we're like finding our own colors, lines, shapes, and forms, what's interesting to us as individual creators and artists. We're looking into our deep emotional stuff if you're a weird artist like me. And we're kind of like pulling out the threads of what's most exciting. Sometimes we can pull on the threads of the past. Hopefully you're pulling the good stuff with you. Sometimes the sad stuff comes out. You know, I do always say inspiration can be anything. And it can be like mundane, simple, what we see in front of us, or it can be like highly abstract. But in this case, we're just talking about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. Point number 5 is to be bold and, you know, follow the unconventional. Maybe do something you wouldn't expect and surprise yourself, right? Take a risk. Push it farther. I feel like we can always push it a little bit farther. That's just how I think. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but when it does, it's really fun. But you never know until you try. So get a little gusto and be bolder. That's one way to experiment and find that expression in that boldness. And then a key point number 6, just trust the process. You know, let the marks emerge, and like be weird and have fun. Let the meaning come in time. Maybe right now it's just about splattering the ink and seeing how it flows, and then mark making off of that. So it's call and response, but you don't really have to know what you're doing in this experimentation and playful nature of being. We can just see what's arising from the moment, and that can be exciting. It can also be scary, but you know, you trust the process, and then you keep making and see how the language eventually forms, right? And that's what we're doing over time, is really honing in on, through the experimentation and play, over and over and over in repetition, because there will be that for sure. many iterations. And depending on how crazy you are, there might be over 1,000. There's gotta be over 1,000 things that I've done in 6 years. A lot of them have not seen the light of day though. Anyway, but you know, that's when you're really in the process and you're trusting the process, and you're learning to trust yourself as you go, right? So that's important. It doesn't just all materialize immediately. It's good to know that, because sometimes we can really take ourselves out, and that's why we really want to learn to trust the process, because we can gain so much when we're just arriving to the moment, the present moment. And it's easy to want to go to the future. It's easy to be sad and lament maybe what didn't happen from the past, but all we have is now. So we learn to show up to the moment and trust that process. And then looking back, we can see, oh yeah, that's where I got lost. Oh, that's where I was really breaking through. And it becomes second nature, all these things. And we can always sort of think and dream into the future. But you can never really plan, because you never really know what's going to happen, at least in my world. So if you enjoyed looking at inspirations and thinking about mark making, I have a small pre-recorded, affordable, accessible online class called Visual Mining, which you look for your own words when you're looking at your inspirational artists, and then you relate that into mark making. So you take your word bank that you generate by looking at these artists, then bring it into mark making, then start to write about it. There's some different levels of writing, some technical and some personal, and then some poetic. I'll put the link to the description below. If you're interested, you could see more about that. And it's all about like learning to just open up wider, express ourselves more fully, and just get closer to like what is that expression internally. And there's many ways to do that. So let's just keep creating.